This is William Tincup and Ryan Leary. This is Inside the C-Suite. We've got John on. We're going to go into his story, his journey, and we're going to learn a bunch of things. So, John, would you do us a favor and introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, primarily I'm Will and Mal's dad. They're my 16 and 14-year-old children. I'm also happily married to my wife, Emily. Well, mostly happily married for 26 years. You know how that goes.
Let's get Emily on the line real quick.
Yeah, she just walked by and looked at me funny, but she'd say the same thing, which is good. You know how that is. Married for 26 years, 2 kids, life. I am very much an avid golfer. I love to golf. That's my free time when I'm not spending time with my kids or working. And I own 2 businesses currently. One is a reverse osmosis water vending company that I started back in 2003 with a business partner of mine. And then I also own Willory, which is a HR and payroll staffing firm. And we also have a unique specialization in client-side HR tech advisory and consulting. And oh, by the way, I did write a book that came out in October of 2023, and I've been on the speaking podcast tour, and current stop is Ryan and William. That's a little bit about me. I'm 50. I just turned 50 in October, and I like the 50s. 50s is good. They're good.
50s is the new 40.
Yeah, I agree.
You only had a couple of months. Let's come back.
No, it really is. 50s is the new 40. 100%.
What are you saying, Ryan? Ask me in a decade if I like the 50s?
Yeah,
I think
but when you're 60, 60 is the new 50, right?
100%. I mean, it might be the new 40 by that time. 60 is the new 40. So Willory is a combination of your 2 children's name, if I remember correctly.
Right. I have a 16-year-old son, and Mallory, my 14-year-old daughter. That was the convincing part to my wife in the midst of the recession. I want to quit my firm and start a business on my own. You're crazy. I'm not working right now.
Name it after our kids.
We have 2 kids that are under the age of 2. And my next sales pitch was, I'll name it after the kids. And I think she said yes. I heard a yes in my mind. I don't know if she actually said yes, but I went with it.
That's fantastic. So where did you start? Tell us a little bit about how you grew up.
I'm very fortunate. I grew up in a small town called Doylestown, Ohio. It's southwest of Cleveland by about 35 to 40 miles, as probably a crow would fly. And I was the youngest of 4 kids. My mom called me the gift. My dad called me the mistake. That was an interesting conversation. Love them both very much. And I have an oldest brother is 10 years older. Tony lives out west. Great person. Love him to death. My sister, Treese, she's 8 years older, lives in Cuyahoga Falls, not too far away.
Yep.
And then my brother, Andy, lives in Buffalo, 6 years older. Hence, my mom joked with me when she had to tell me a very intimate story about how I came into the earth. That the rhythm method just didn't quite work out.
You grew up Catholic.
Every 3 years.
I grew up Catholic, yes. Yeah. And I learned very awkwardly what the rhythm method was. I asked her.
Same bit.
I regretted asking my mom that question.
Never asked that question.
To me.
Never asked it. I grew up Catholic, same thing. My parents were Catholic, and I'm Catholic. My kid's Catholic, wife's Catholic, the whole bit. But I was 6 years after my oldest brother, my 2 oldest brothers. So 6 and 7 years respectively. And I was a gift or a mistake, depending on your perspective.
I'll go with
yes.
So literally the same bit. Same bit.
That's funny. Yeah, it's funny. My mom told me that story because when she got pregnant with me, my dad was apparently pretty upset. I had my 3 kids.
I thought we were done with this.
3 kids within 4 years of time or whatever the math was. Had it all figured out, white picket fence and everything. And then along comes John. And the cool part is my siblings would probably tell you if they were on this show that I was blessed to have the closest relationship with my dad because he mellowed as he got older.
100%.
He was way into golf, and I played 1,000 rounds of golf with my dad, and my siblings would be jealous of how much time I got to spend with my dad because while they were growing up, he was working his tail off running a regional hospital and the stress of all that. And he liked to have fun, play golf, and work in his garden. And I got a lot of time I got more time with my dad, I would say, than my older siblings did, even though they're
combined.
Older than I am.
Yeah, I did the same thing. My dad went back to school when I was at Alabama, and we'd drive in together. So he quit after 35 years of being with Weyerhaeuser and said he wanted to be a teacher. So he went back and got his teaching certificate, and it was at the same time I was getting my undergrad. And so literally we just drive in together because we were both there all day. So it's like, why use two cars, two parking spaces? So we drive in together. And he'd go on his way to education, I'd go on my way to art. And it was hilarious because we'd talk later in the day. He'd just come by where I worked. I worked at the library. And he'd just come by. He's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm checking in and checking out books. not a real difficult setup here, Dad.
putting my degree to work here, Dad. Come
on. not a big thing, but I can relate because my dad I would say both he mellowed, but also my brothers had completely beat them down. They'd worn him out, just completely worn him out, and so he was more mellow, but also by the time I came around, he was like, okay, you know what? I've been through this too with two other boys. Go do the things you have to do, and we'll figure it out later. So that's cool.
You remind me of a funny story of my dad. While I'm actually looking at how I misspelled my own name at the bottom of the Riverside app.
I wasn't gonna say anything. I literally wasn't gonna say anything.
No, it's okay. Literally, I'm listening to you, and I'm just checking. I picked my name up. I'm like, wait a second, it's
who the hell is that guy?
William or Ryan, and I'm like, wait a second, they didn't misspell it. I did. My dad had so sorry, if you want to know how to spell my name, you can hit me up at john@willory.com. Nobody probably really cares, but at our family reunions, my dad would have all of us individually pronounce our last name. And we would get around 7 different variations.
100%.
And we asked my dad which one is right, and he said, I don't know, whichever one you want. But it was Bernatovciz, Bernatovich. It was a lot of different variations.
What's the ethnic background? What is the
Polish?
Yeah.
Yes, and it used to be Bernatovciz. The V.
Yeah. It's an Ellis Island thing. Yeah.
There's a couple Bernatowitzes in Erie, PA. I saw them in a phone book. To tell you how old I am, about 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah,
exactly. What's a phone book? And I heard there were Bernatowitzes, and then I didn't want to creep on them and show up. But I've never. The only Bernatoviches are literally related to me. They're direct blood relatives.
You probably haven't visited Cleveland, but on the west side, well, both sides. It's like New York. There's an east side and a west side. Basically, they're divided by the river. And on the west side, the ethnic communities, there's pockets like Slovaks and like literally there's a Polish community. There's all kinds of. It's fantastic, and it's obviously changed over time. But it's like you can drive over there and all of a sudden you're in a Polish neighborhood, or you're in a Czechoslovakian neighborhood. You're in this neighborhood, like on the east side where I was. There was Little Italy. It was actually real close to Case, and so you could go down to Little Italy, and it was Little Italy. Like back, I could see it being even more Little Italy back in the day. But it was fantastic. I mean, for me, being able to drive over to the west side and actually just go. We would go pub to pub and just kind of see different people, hang out with different groups of people. It was fantastic.
My parents are both from Parma. That's where the predominant Polish hangout, and known for the pierogies. Ryan, if you ever want,
I love me some
doughy potatoes with some butter and onions. Oh my gosh, like dying and going to Polish heaven. I can tell you that.
Oh yeah, no, that's legit.
Some pierogies, and my kids like them too. That's probably the best thing about them. They like pierogies.
So where did you go to college? Was there a lot of pressure to go the Ohio State, or would?
No, yeah. The story goes, we grew up in Doylestown. My oldest brother Tony went all the way through Doylestown High School. My dad decided then to send my 2 middle siblings to a private school, and it turns out they were a dominant basketball and football program. My brother had a great time there. It ends up being St. Vincent St. Mary, the home of LeBron James.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, watched it on TV.
And my dad had a buddy of his that would own the big lumber yard in Doylestown, Ohio, called Gale House. And Gale House decided, very interesting as I look back as a CEO, what a unique pivot. They were in the business of construction supplies. They provided all the wood and the materials to all the construction companies, primarily in Ohio, in Northeast Ohio. Well, they decided that they were going to get into the construction business. Let's compete with our customers,
Oh,
which
wow.
was unique. And my dad was buddies with the owner, and I assume over some bottle of something, my dad was convinced to subsidize and got, as he called it, a great deal to build a house 3 times the size of the house that I grew up in, although my siblings had all gone to college. I told you the math, 6 years. It's right around the time I was in 8th grade. In 8th grade, my closest brother in age was at Miami University.
Yeah.
My dad comes to tell me, hey, we're moving to Bath, Ohio. Okay. We started building a house. It was cool. That whole experience. I was just along for the ride. And as he literally drove me the very first day of school, November 1st, 1987. I remember it because it changed my life for a couple reasons. Number one, I asked him in the car ride, I said, I'm still going to St. V, right? Because that's where my brother went, who I idolized, and I had some buddies that were on the golf team. And he said, no. Just a matter of fact, there was no discussion. No. Do you know how much I pay in taxes in Bath? I'm getting the best use out of that tax money. Okay.
Huh.
There was no negotiation. It was a question with an answer. There was no rebuttal.
You asked.
I asked. He answered.
Yeah.
And then, as it turns out, that very first day, two things happened at that first day of school. I sat at the popular kids table at lunch because I didn't have any friends. And as you milled around between periods, everyone was BSing with their buddies. I went beeline to the cafeteria and I just sat down. I sat down at the popular kids table. And the most popular kid in our school, his name's Con Parantonitis. I hope he's listening because he changed my life. He made the choice to put his arm around me and say, hey, welcome to our new school. Who are you? What's your deal? Go ahead and stay. Otherwise, he could have had his 3 buddies give me a twirly in the toilet, and my life would have gone south from there. I tried out for the basketball team a few weeks after that. But the second really cool thing that happened, I got on the school bus to ride home that very first day of school, and I met my wife. Didn't know it at the time, but sat next to what I described as the cutest, tallest blonde that was my general age range, and I plopped my butt right down next to her seat. And 5-6 years later, she came around to the idea of tolerating me as a friend, and I wore her down later to date me, and then, like I said, 26 years later, happily married most of the time.
Wow. That is fantastic. Did you play on the golf team in high school?
I did. I played in the golf team at Revere 4 times. We went to state. I get to see because my kids go there, they have the banners up in the high school for our state participation. I was all-state golfer, and then I got a scholarship to play at Kent State University for Herb Page, who is a legendary golf coach from Canada. He recruited Ben Curtis, and there's a number of other players that are on the PGA Tour now from Canada, Corey Connors, Mackenzie Hughes, and John Mills. John Mills is actually the new golf coach at Kent, but I played there, had a blast, was an academic All-American, thought about being a professional golfer for about a week. And then
Did you go to Q school? Was that the humbling experience?
I won a tournament in Indiana, and I beat a bunch of...
He asked his dad, and his dad answered and said, no.
No.
If I asked my dad, he would have said yes, absolutely.
100%.
That was...
That would have been his dream.
That was yes. But I won a tournament in Indiana, beat some pretty prominent players, and for the car ride home, I was thinking of turning pro, and I had a lifelong buddy of mine that I still hang out with today went with me to Indiana, and he said, you're capable, but I don't think it's a good choice. You're going to spend a ton of money and a ton of resources and a ton of time. And then how I ended up making the decision to not be a professional golfer is I asked my junior and senior year at Kent, we played with the best schools in the country, or top 20 program, played against Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson and David Duval and you name it, top shelf golfers, Hall of Famers now. And every person I asked, Ryan and William, every player that I asked, what are you doing after school? I'm going to try. I'm turning pro. I'm going to try turning pro. And I did the math in my head after that same response.
There's only so many slots.
Kids that I was better than about 50 of them.
Right.
But I wasn't better than 79 of them, which I knew I had to. I had to be better than everyone I met, everyone I played with, and I wasn't. And
Right.
my closest comparison, there's a buddy of mine who's on the PGA Tour, Ryan Armour. We played high school and college golf. He went to Ohio State. He's the only guy comparing my talent to his. Same stature, general, just a grinder, good iron player. He won a PGA tournament when he was 40-ish.
Wow.
And he grinded playing golf his entire adult life.
Right.
And he made it. And I'm sure he's super happy. I see him on Facebook and all this stuff, but it's that is a absolute 1000% grind. I don't know if you watch Full Swing on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
The greatest players in the world are actually, they are so fragile because of the game.
Oh, 100%.
Rory, Scotty Scheffler, Joel Damon especially. I mean, he's a total basket case. I mean, I love to watch him because he's so genuine, but the game just grinds you down.
You remember Ian Baker Finch, right?
Oh yeah.
He got the yips and putting and just never was the same. But before that, dude, he was a top 10. Like, you could count on him because he was not robotic, but he was just good. And then he lost his putter. And David Duval at one point, same thing. But again, I guess when people were playing against Tiger, especially at that first decade, that had to have been so intimidating that you could show up with your A game and still lose. Like,
yeah, no, he was. Well, they talk about it all the time how just uniquely special. I do have a Tiger Woods story. You probably would appreciate.
Oh, well, let's go.
When I was 18, he was 16. I'm 2 years older than him, and we played in a tournament together called the Western Junior. It was the 75th anniversary of the Western Junior, which
it's the second largest other than the amateur. The third largest is the Southern.
You know, William, you're there.
No, my brother's on the board of the Southern, which is right after the Western. That's
perfect.
the only reason I know.
We've talked about this before. That's right. And anyway, Tiger's in this tournament, and I'd heard of him, but it was the first time that I felt like I played in a tournament because most of the tournaments were on the West Coast, and I was from Ohio. Right. He came to the Western Junior because it was the 75th anniversary, and the finals of the tournament were being hosted at Chicago Golf Club, which is a top 10 or 15 golf course in the country. Yeah. It's an incredible place. I didn't sign up for the tournament because of that. I just signed up because it was a great tournament. Anyway, the way they do it is they get 250 kids and you play 2 rounds of golf on 2 different courses. One of them was at Cog Hill, which they've hosted a PGA Tour event. And then the top 64 players get seeded in just like the NCAA tournament, like March Madness. And I get seeded in, I qualify. So does Tiger. And we go to Chicago Golf Club, and I just found my game, and I won my first match, second match, third match. I'm in the Elite 8, technically, third or fourth match. Can't remember the exact number. And it's in between rounds. We were playing 36 holes. Morning round was one match, and then we played in the afternoon. And there's 20 people on the property. There's 8 golfers, their caddies. Parents didn't go to these things. This is not like modern day. They didn't go to these. They sent me to Chicago to live in a hotel and go figure it out. Lo and behold, a guy that I knew was buddies with Tiger and said, "Oh, hey, Tiger, you want to have lunch with my friend John? If you win your match, you're going to play him in the semifinals." And honest to God, I sat there for 20 minutes with Tiger Woods, and he didn't look at me or say a word to me.
Well, it was all psychological warfare.
I mean, it was just bizarre.
His dad back then, especially, his dad was so much in his ear, and it was also psychological warfare.
It totally was. But on that tournament, William, I won my next match, the semifinals. Tiger lost. So I do have the.
So you beat Tiger
Woods in a golf tournament once.
Technically, yeah.
Done.
And the funny part is people say, "Well, were you 8 and was he 6?" I said, "Do you know how good of a golfer Tiger Woods was at 6 years old?" It doesn't matter if he was 8, 18, or 28. He was better than everybody else at his 100%. Age group by a mile.
Oh yeah,
but it was pretty cool. Fun story.
So, how did you get from that to your first kind of leadership, ownership, kind of your first kind of even management position? What'd you do? How'd you get from golf to that?
Graduated from Kent,
Yep.
and I got a job with ADP right out of college, and cried myself to sleep many a night, wondering how in the world did I get into this, from college to making cold calls, 70, 80, 90 of them a day.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't good at that at all. I second guessed my choice. I thought being a professional golfer seems easier than this. I eventually figured that out, had a cool run at ADP, was in management, then got promoted into their national account space. But about probably 6 years into my career at ADP, I got bit by the entrepreneurial bug. I started my water vending company, and I can say this now because I don't work there anymore, but I was doing very well. I was a top performer, made their president's club, but all I cared about
this was the first conversation with your wife where I'm going to do this, or I'd like to do this thing, and she looks at you a little bit crazy.
Yes, I literally was selling $1 million deals at ADP back in the early 2000s, and I was more concerned about how do I get more people to put quarters in these water vending machines. Because I own the business. I didn't own ADP. I mean, I was a shareholder. I shouldn't say I didn't own ADP. I was a shareholder, but I was part of that large behemoth animal that is corporate America, and I loved it. But at a certain point, I realized that it wasn't the right place for me for the rest of my life.
Right. And
I started my business. I did that for about 2 years on the weekends. Quite frankly, I didn't take any time away from ADP. I wasn't stealing time. I had a side hustle before it was called a side hustle, but I just realized how much I loved it. I left ADP to join a boutique search firm, and I did that for about 4 years. And in the midst of those 4 years, we had both of our kids, and then that's when the story I told my wife.
So I really would like
to. Oh, go ahead.
No. What were you specialized in the search? Were you specialized in HR?
We were an executive search firm.
Yeah.
My partner, we really did any kind of executive level search, but I realized that the easier part for the business for me was HR and payroll because I had a network, and that's where my connections were. That's where my community was. And I did most of that work. And I don't know if my partner was really into that. He was more IT and sales and engineering. And we very, very amicably separated in roughly 2010.
Yeah.
And that's where I convinced my wife, hey, I got this great idea. I can work from home. I can be around
time with the kids.
I can be around to see the major events. And if
Ryan and I have told the same lies to our wife. So we're comfortable.
Blowout or what I was very convincing. My wife is a tough customer. But she didn't want any part of it until at least in my mind, I can name it. I found there's a domain, Willory.com. She goes, what's Willory? It's Will and Mallory's names merged together.
Yeah, but what about my name?
Yeah, exactly. And that was roughly 14 years ago this year. That's hard to believe.
What did you see as a market opportunity at the time? Like, what was not being done in your mind? Because when you create a venture, you're looking for a hole. What is that market opportunity? Something that's being unmet, or it's being done, but it's being done in a shoddy way?
Two main things. Number one, having worked at ADP, I was in sales, and it was interesting how great of a rapport and relationship we built with our prospects in the sales process. And then they sign the contract. Everybody's excited. We kick off. And then as soon as the implementation starts and they realize how much work they have to do and how much, how much this is going to be an additional part-time job on top of my full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
I did that enough and had people so frustrated with me enough that I realized that the formula doesn't work.
Agreed.
And it's still that case some 20 years later, and was obviously 20 years before I was doing it. That combined with my experience in the executive search business, when I was doing the HR and payroll related work, there were no specialized firms at all in payroll, none.
Right.
And then there were just a few, and when I say a few, I mean 2 or 3 in the country that were hanging their hat on HR. And I decided to combine those two experiences to build our firm. We started off first as a search firm, and contract staffing firm. And then the consulting part came as we were doing more and more contract projects.
It's usually success-based. After you do something well, they're like, hey, what else can you do? And it's like, it leads to something else, which led obviously probably to vendor selection because you didn't start there.
No.
But at one point, someone says, hey, we're looking at, let's just pick somebody, Ultimate or Ceridian and ADP. What do you think? And you now have to walk them through the pros and cons of both.
I feel like you were there. You were in were you in the car at the time when I drove that appointment, William? I think you were. Yeah, that's exactly how it happened. We got our first vendor selection, and then we were intimately involved in a number of implementation projects. We've since become certified partners with a number of the large scale HR tech providers. And the most unique part for me is when they're asking us to be their partner, not the reverse. That was an arrival moment for me from a business standpoint. You got these large global brands that you see sponsoring golf tournaments and
UKG
multi-billion-dollar businesses asking my little boutique firm to be a partner of theirs. And in some regards, I'd say the tech partners have a variety of flavors of how they do that certified partnership relationship. I think one, it shouldn't be as complimentary because they're asking everybody. And on another end, it's really complimentary because they're really vetting out a select few partners. And that part's been really unique for me to observe as a business owner and see that tech space evolve.
Well, it's in everybody's best interest. If done well, the client, their client, your client, the client gets usage. And if they get usage, they get adoption, they get consumption, and they get the most out of the software. So it's in everybody's best interest. Like there is an alignment here where doesn't have to be. And most of the SaaS software companies don't want headcount because that's the antithesis to Wall Street. Like that's not a good thing if they ever care about that. So they need somebody to actually take care of their customer and get them to this place where they adopt and use the software, dare I say even love the software, so that they remain sticky, so that they can keep that lifetime value of the customer. So that extends to whatever it extends to. So like it's in everybody's best interest. I think that the rub has historically been who pays for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
like that historically. I don't know if it's still the same way, but
no, you're 100% correct. It's fascinating to me. It's really a resource constraint issue on both ends.
Right.
The partners, as the HR tech software providers grow, they get this scalability number that they end up reaching a point where
they can't do it.
We can't keep up with the volume of implementations or the new clients that we're acquiring. And as a result, we can't service you, customer, the same way we could when we were small and mighty.
Right. We can start in 9 months.
Yeah, exactly. We need a certified partner to help you. And the clients are like, great. Is that part of our service arrangement and fee? Well, no, you got to pay extra for that. And then on the client side, same goes.
They've already shot their wad with the CFO at that point.
Yeah,
by
exactly.
The way. Yeah.
And on the client side, pre-selection or even once they've selected it and they're in implementation, okay, we're going to put our project team together. It's not like a group of people come from out of the in the parking lot that have nothing to do, and then all of a sudden say, oh, you need a project done? I'm gonna do that. I have resident expertise in HR, payroll, and benefits, and time and recruiting. No, it's the recruiting manager, it's the payroll manager, it's the HR manager, and then, oh, by the way, hey, you talent acquisition lead, you're good at project management, right? You can be the project manager. And then all of them have.
Oh, by the way, we're not going to pay you any more money. However, and you don't have any experience. However, and you're not going to really have any resources. Good luck.
Well, you get to put it on your resume, and you can add it. It's a stretch assignment. We can sell it as a stretch assignment, and you can do that job. And then all of a sudden, everyone's wondering why 3 to 4 to 6 weeks into this project,
sideways.
Everything's coded yellow or red. We're behind.
Oh yeah,
and we don't know what to do.
Or they've left.
They
You've got turnover. Yeah. Oh no, they've got a better job with no stretch goals. Ryan, this is very much a Gen X. Ryan's at the very end of Gen X, so he's a 78. But still a Gen X. Sorry. Anywho, this is very much a Gen X thing. A
Yeah, for sure.
stretch assignment. If
Yeah.
you said stretch assignment to Gen Z, they'd look at you
Yeah.
and literally say, "Yeah, no,
We had
we're
stretch
not gonna."
assignments at IBM.
You did?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Well,
did.
that makes sense. That tracks actually.
We
I
did.
shouldn't. I shouldn't be surprised by that.
Not sure I did well or took them.
So okay, so we're getting a sense of where you're going because a lot of this is client led. You're successful at something, then they say, "John, can you?" And then you're like, "Well, let's take a look at it. Let's see if we have the people." Okay, then you do that, and then you're successful at that, and you just kind of move around, and just you have success. If you don't have success, the clients aren't going to continue to ask you to do stuff. So, I get that. Why? I would say in the hell, but I won't. Would you write a book? Like what? First of all, what's wrong with you, and why?
I have really bad friends in HR.
He wanted to
you
go on
included,
tour.
William. Yeah, you. I hang out with you
Fair
and
statement.
Tim Sackett and
Fair
Chris
statement.
Dunn and Ben Eubanks and Steve Brown, and I see all these people that I
Negative
know.
influences.
Yeah. Really, really bad friend picker. That's what I am. I think that's the immediate answer, but the genuine, true answer is, in all sincerity, I saw all of you doing what you were doing, and it wasn't jealousy or copycat. It was just,
Right.
hey, if they can do it, I can do it too. And I
100%.
looked at writing a book as being the ultimate professional challenge. That's all there is to it. I tell the story from the age of 20, I should say 19, my junior year of college till I was 47. I read one book, and I went to 2 years of college in that. I read Who Moved My Cheese?
That's success right there.
Because it was this small and it was 42 pages. And
you read it in the bathroom. We get it.
Yeah, exactly. Someone told me I could read it in less than an hour.
100%. It's like on most Ken Blanchard books. Done.
Yeah, I
Just put them in the
could do
bathroom.
that. Okay, I can't really read. I don't read. I don't like it. My friends have done it, which I think I know them well, and they're regular guys and gals.
Nothing special.
They're no different than me. And then the heartfelt part of the story is both my parents passed away in a short, compressed time from about a year. And you had one of those at 47. I had, what am I going to do when I grow up? What have I not gotten accomplished in my life that I wanted to do that I didn't?
Senior tour.
Playing in a professional golf, not being a professional golfer, playing in a professional golf tournament was one of those things.
Pro-Am?
No. I want to make a senior tour event, William. I'm trying my tail off. I just turned 50. I'm going to try. I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I'm going to try.
Doesn't matter if you make it.
I have 3 attempts this summer.
Okay.
And then I'll keep at it. That was one thing. That was really more selfish for me. That was because my dad would have loved that, but I really love golf. Golf is my escape. People think I'm weird. I relax when I golf. I don't get stressed. I'm the opposite of most golfers. And then the other thing was, I want to write a book because my mom was an artist. She painted the mural behind me. My dad was an executive in a hospital for 30 years, a CEO. And I thought to myself, what's a unique tribute I could do to both of them? And I can't sing a song. I can't dance a lick. I can't play a musical instrument to save my life. But I can write a wicked email. That's what I told myself. I can write a really wicked email. And if I could write 1,000 wicked emails, I could turn it into a book.
100%.
And more or less what I did was I spent 1 year every weekend, 7:30 to about 9:30 before my kids got up, and I just wrote. And lo and behold, 70-some thousand words later, and a signed contract with Sherm Books and a book launch in late October. That's the answer to the question, William. It was a very unique, winding path to get to that point.
I haven't asked. Oh, Ryan, I know you have questions.
I do. I'm just listening to the conversation today. I want to go backwards a little bit, and up until this point, it seems like, at least in our story, it's all been success. But I'm sure you've hit bumps along the road, and ran into a few walls here and there.
You got a snowman on the 8th? Are you talking about that type of success?
Yeah.
What type of success are you talking about? Because if we're talking golfing.
I've made a snowman or two, but it's painful when I do. For those wondering, that's an 8
Yes.
on a golf
That is an
hole,
8.
which is the bane. Anything higher than an 8 is a
Oh,
bane of any good golfer's
100%.
existence.
No,
But
that's usually if you're playing with friends, that's just pick it up. Stop.
yeah, just you're taking too long. Just stop embarrassing yourself and slowing us up.
Just
But
take the
Ryan,
8.
yeah, to answer your question, I've made so many mistakes in my life, and I've been fortunate to have a fair amount of success, and I think I'm highly competitive.
Yeah.
And I'd say the number one thing that I have challenged with myself personally and professionally, I have a very short attention span, and I have a complete lack of the complacency to me is another C word, cancer word in a business person's mindset, and that's caused some unique personal challenges. I have a psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist that I see about every quarter, and I work through the challenges that I deal with, and trying to keep my attention for
Right.
it's been 50 minutes is a lot.
Yeah, but we're
And
talking about stuff you like. So
you're asking me questions, and I don't want to. It's going to be recorded, and people are going to listen to it, and they may say, "Hey, John, I heard you on this show." But if I'm in a meeting and I can lose my attention span so fast, and as a result, I have maybe said a few things, done a few things that in my life and how I treated people that I regret. That's probably been my biggest personal and professional. And then I'd also say that the one that probably stands out the most of just making a mistake is that I was always willing to try things.
Right.
And I was willing to take a risk. And with that risk, I lost $150,000 on a deal that I was involved in a company that I started. And would I like to have that $150,000 back? And would that be $450,000 now if I had invested it the right way? Well, yeah. But I've never been. William brought it up early on. I think before we even got to recording, this idea of being a child at heart. And I'm not having regrets. I don't want to live my life and say I shoulda, woulda, coulda. I don't want that. And as a result of that, sometimes I will do some regretfully stupid things that turn out to be bad decisions and maybe could have been thought through better. But I don't live with regret currently, which is a beautiful place to be.
any of those hiring decisions?
There were a few.
Yeah.
that we had, and I think to our credit in my firm, we have done an incredible job. As I see other companies that we work with, we've really defined our culture, what the purpose of our business is, the services
cool.
we provide. We're clear about what our core values are, and we hire and recognize to them, and we will also fire to them on occasion. And I just don't see enough employers doing that with, I'll call it steadfast. Just, this is who we are. These are the rules of engagement.
Right.
And we're looking for people that of all walks of life that can play within the confines of our rules. And
Is that
I
with
think
clients as well, or
Oh, yeah.
partners?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, because I can see that applying to all aspects of the business, right? So if you're with a software vendor and they start to treat you in a way that is outside of your value system, some people will hold on to this for a long time. Same thing with with a client, and they'll stick with a client. They're paying them a lot of money. Money's good, but it's toxic. Employees are going sideways. We had a client 100 years ago. We had a client that at one point or another, my entire team came and sought me out. I was probably drinking somewhere, but yeah, they sought me out, and they're like, "We can't work with this person." And I'm like, "We? Is that the French Victorian we? What are you, what are you talking about? We?" They're like, "No, none of us in the firm. We've already done a poll. We've talked to every single person and the interns. No one's working with this client." I'm like, "All right, okay, I'll take care of it." I called the client. I just said, "Hey, love you. I mean, you and I are great because like we both operate in the same way, but none of my staff will work with you." So, like, we've got to figure out a different way to do this because right now they're not going to answer your calls or emails because you're abusive. And I abuse them, but then again, I pay them.
You're cutting the check.
You can't do that. I mean, if you want to pick another firm, totally get it. Like I get it, but so I can see this being applied to all facets of the business.
I was told once by a entrepreneur buddy years and years and years ago, you have not arrived as an entrepreneur until you fire a client that's paying you more than 6 figures.
100%.
And
or you've put payroll on a visa, or the lawsuit has been filed against you.
yes,
That's the
2 out
entrepreneurship.
of 3 of those. I've not used a visa, but I've put it on other forms.
Yeah,
of
creative
credit.
financing.
Yes, all those things. Yes to all those
Honey,
things.
if we put it on our Amex, we're gonna get these many points.
We're getting
I've had to have
6% back.
I've had to discover. Yeah, I've had to have that conversation with my wife a couple of times. That's a lot of fun. It's like, listen, there's an upside here. We should be doing this every month. Horrible to say.
Upside to Amex or Discover, not to anyone else.
No, it's a loss then. So we got to writing a book. What's next? I mean, is Sherm already pressuring you into like your next thing?
No pressure from them. They have first right of refusal in the contract for the next book, and
cool.
I've actually storyboarded 3 other books that I want to write, and I have about 6 presentation decks and descriptions of presentations. My next thing, William, is really, to me, the next book I'd like to write would be really centered on chapter 14 of HR Like a Boss, which is the business plan for doing amazingly awesome HR. And at the very top of it is having a purposeful commitment.
Yeah, I hate that. I want to scratch all that. Okay, so terrible idea.
I love it. Thank you.
Here's what your next book should be about: the relationship between golf and HR.
I've done a couple vlogs by that. I've done some video stuff.
Dude, now you got everybody then, because you can go into talent, you can go into recruitment, you can go into sourcing, you can go into talent development, learning, like all the facets of HR applied through golfing.
How about we co-write that book?
I'm down. I got ChatGPT.
There you go. Awesome.
William in writing.
But seriously, like who wouldn't love that book? Even people that don't love HR, that they love golf, that's an entree for them to understand what HR is. So you got a whole audience that's outside of this that fucking hates HR. But now, because they love golf, like all the iconography can all be flags, like all be famous flags from all the greatest golf courses around the world.
I love it. All right, I'll put that. I'll storyboard that one too.
If anyone outside of HR is probably not reading a book about HR, regardless.
No, but if it's about golf, if you tie it back into the lessons learned about golf through the lens of HR, they'll read it. Golfers read, man. Not John, but other golfers. Most golfers.
I read now, but I didn't before.
Yeah. Anyhow, I'm just kidding, of course. To write whatever book you want. Right.
You are.
I love Ryan. He put his hands over his eyes. Yeah. Like, William, you just tell this guy to not write the book that he was telling. You literally cut him off and said, "No, terrible idea. Terrible idea."
I think there's a better idea. Because you said it. You said, I'm competitive. I don't like complacency. And in those 2 things, I thought those are the best. Those are the best HR leaders in the world. Those 2 things. They're competitive and they're not complacent.
Yeah,
so if UKG or Workday is paying them a whole shit ton of money to write it, and they're going to sponsor it on the tour,
they all sponsor. Dude, go and look at their websites. They all of those folks that you just Workday and UKG for sure, but also other companies, they sponsor golfers. Maybe not on the tour, but they have different golfers, man. Like this is a match made in heaven.
Gotcha. I'll work that. Great idea. You can write the forward to it. How's that, William?
Done.
Okay, perfect.
I'm in. So
awesome. You heard it here first, people.
Yeah. Dude, my brother,
pre-order here.
My brother's a scratch golfer and a high school golf coach, and he explained golfing to me this way. He said, when you're out on a round, there's going to be a moment where you're telling yourself where you want this little ball to go, And then you do it, and then all of a sudden you feel it in your soul. It goes all the way through the club and it goes into your soul, and you feel this feeling. You might not feel that feeling again for that round. You might not feel that feeling every round, but once you feel that feeling, you're addicted to it. And I found that to
So
be
true.
true. I found
So
that to be
true.
true. John, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. A, just for your personality and what you do in the market, and your book and all those things. By the way, Ryan and I need to get signed copies, all that stuff.
Yes.
Neither here nor there. Thank you for being on the show. This has been fantastic.